Well, today I start a series on making something serious. Serious? Serious. Seriously. Yes. So, I've been watching this guy on YouTube. I think it's Pask Makes. I'll put a link to the channel below and maybe a framed thing here. But he inspired me to make this gem. Yeah, that's a gear almost as wide as me, and I'm big. But before we do that, we're gonna need to make some tools, specifically for doing this type of thing. So let's get into it. And look, I made a circle cutter. I have a pin that slides in and out so you get different size circles. And then a router mounts to it, gets bolted through the inside, and then I started using it and it ripped apart. So we're gonna make a stronger one. So we're gonna use this big thing. It's an automotive hub, Chevy Impala. I think it fits a bunch of different things. Just basic 5-lug pattern. My router's gonna go in here. It'll be a fixed base. On the bottom of it, it's got this little section that you can put a porta cable bushing in, and this one does too. So I can do either router and I don't have to change anything. This is the bushing, it measures 3/4, and now I just have to make this fit that, and then fit this to that somehow. I ain't figured it out yet. Let's go. I know I have to put bolts through it. It also has to crap, that didn't work. I might have to hit it harder with a pencil. So these bolts aren't super necessary to be accurate. What really needs to happen is it just needs to be held into this position. I'm just using the flat spots on the drawing there to give myself an area where I know it's kind of in the middle. And this bolt is about 12 millimeters, so I'm just going to drill it out to the closest size I have in the Forstner bit. Measure the outside diameter of this part that has to go through, and then use my calipers to try to find the center of that triangle, and then I'll just use a pencil to highlight the mark so I know where the center of it is. Looks like it's right there in the middle of all those marks. And I'll take that diameter, divide it in half, and carve myself a circle in the wood. I know if you're a machinist, you're probably freaking out right now that I used that tool inappropriately. But hey, it's my tool. I'm just going to use a pencil to highlight the area and then just drill a random hole. Now you know why I just drilled a random hole. If I'd have drilled it in the middle, I would have had to go all the way to the middle with the jigsaw. Chew away at this a little bit so the thing will fit. Hey, look, it fits. There it is. I'm just gonna trim this thing to a nominal dimension. Looks like 6 inches is gonna work just fine. I'm also gonna cut it to about 24 inches long, just so that I have room to mess around with it. I'll set the fence to 6 inches wide and make a couple of passes. this joint back in here. I'm going to flip it over so that I can tell how far off the surface I need to have my other piece. This is the second piece. I have to attach these, but I can't have them just right up against each other. I need a spacer. So I used a sponge and a clamp to get my gap, and then I'm cutting the spacers. One will go on each piece so that they will they'll be parallel. Now I gotta poke this thing through this little part here. I'm just gonna use a pencil to kind of draw the circle where I want to put my bit. And that's 3/4. That's also 3/4. It's gonna be close enough. Did you think I was going to drill into my bench? Because I did. I'm just checking to see if this bushing fits. It does. So now I can drill all the way through. And I did that off camera. I'm going to make some vent holes here just so that I can see the line while I'm trimming. Use a Forstner bit to knock out the corner or the ends of it, and then we'll go ahead and connect those dots with a jigsaw. There, some windows. This fits in there, I can see through there. And I'm going to round over the edges just for feel. You don't have to do this. This will just make it a little nicer to hang on to. Never use hand tools. Make sure that you are aware of your fingers, as I am very aware of mine right now. Alright, now I'm going to mark out what I want for a length out of my jig to get this one gear done, because it has to fit this gear. And I want some adjustability in case I want to adjust it, so I'm just going to make it a little bit longer, and maybe a little bit longer. I'll line up my center bushing to that mark, and this to the other mark. There it is. And make my calculations based on that. It looks like I needed to cut 6 inches off, which might get me down to, I think, 18. So now you can kind of see how it parallel faces each other. And I'm just going to glue these things on so that they won't wiggle around and get all weird on me. That is Tight Bond 2 Premium Wood Glue. I can read. I just call it Sauce. Making sure not to put nails in too much of a random space, because I might want to drill through that later on. So I made sure I put one in the end and one in the middle, and I remember where those are at. I need to lay out for some slots on the top. On the top? Do I want to do them on the top? Yeah, I do. Yeah, slots on the top. So I'll knock all this material out. It'll give me a couple of choices for lengths. And then on the bottom, I'll put a series of holes so that I can choose which ones I want to use. The slots will be 4 inches, the holes will be 3 inches, and that will pretty much accommodate any size of the run that I want to do. Except that hole. I didn't like that hole. Now I'm just going to connect these dots with this square. And we'll do 8 holes for 4 positions. Just knocking off the extra furry parts. Don't really care about the finish, it's not going to get finished. So I measure my T. I notice that my bit's not quite big enough, but I can just move the jig later when I get to that point. Measuring to make sure these are all the exact same distance from the edge, and then measuring to the center of my bit here. A little bit of an adjustment, tighten it down. Now I'm going to see where my hole is, line it up over my bit, and then make a mark here because I want to stop before I go too far. I'll do the same thing from the other side. That's as far as I want to go with that. I'll run it up against here and mark it on both sides so I know where to stop. And here we go. I also made sure my bit was high enough to make clearance for that T-bolt. Doesn't quite fit like I knew it wouldn't. So just make a small adjustment and go for it again. And the bolt slides right in, no problem. I'm actually plunging this into the material in a spot just so I can see where my line is, and then I'm going to go to the spot where I want to end up and do the same thing. Notice the marks are a storyboard of where I'm going to take this thing to and from. As soon as I get to this other line, I know I'm done. I'm going to just repeat that for the next spot where my next story starts. Gonna put a couple of these bolts in, push that one in, and that one didn't want to push in, and that, I don't know what that was, but it was biting me. So it seems like it's gonna work just fine. Router goes in, and there we go. Router jig, all done. Circle cutting, router jig. Super strong.
And that's how I made the best circle cutting jig ever. And that thing's never gonna break. You didn't think I was gonna do all this and then not show you how it does a circle. You ready for this? Because it's kind of involved. It's not just a pin. Anyway, if you've stuck around this long, you probably want to see it. So anyway, here we go.
So this is super strong. It's also way overkill, and I get it. But the reason I'm using this is because it's going to be integral to the part that I'm actually building, which is that gear at the very beginning of the episode. So I'm just going to try to stick this thing right here in the middle, and that's where it'll live the rest of its life. So using a machinist's tool here, I'm going to make a circle on my plywood to give me an indication where the hub's going to go. Then I'm going to highlight the circle so that I know where it's at. It just gives me a better visual reference. I just use a little square to kind of line it up to that line. And it's not critically important that this thing is in the exact middle of this piece of plywood. I'm just trying to get it close because I'm going to cut a very large circle out of it. About like a 46.5 inch circle, 47. Then I realized I could just use a pencil to go around these things and get that close enough to where I got to drill. And then just a visual X in the middle so that I can run a pilot bit in there. Grab a pointy starter bit, I guess. And right in the middle here. Oh, wait. Psych. So I just did a slightly larger hole than the bolt. And one for the jigsaw to go in because I got to cut that out. It's always hard to manage the cord on this jigsaw when it's going around in a circle. It's always getting in the way. And that is about as snug as that needs to fit. I bought these jam nuts. They fit these axle studs just fine. And there we go. It's super rigid. Doesn't care that anything's in the way. So I'm getting my actual measurement for the circle that I have to cut, and I'm gonna move forward with this this part of the process. Now I know that the plywood is slightly larger than 24, so I'm gonna go a little bit more than that, and that should be close enough for my first pass here. Except I'm going to be able to cut right down the middle of that, and that's not going to be good. I got to be to the outside of that. Yep, won't go. So I found a fatal flaw. Well, I guess you got to figure out what size arc you want to do before you do an arc. Oh well, apart it comes. Alright, let's check this fit now. And there we go, it's on the outside. I am not using dust collection on this, as you can tell, but I was holding my breath the entire time. It seems like a good measurement, so we're going to go for it. And my bit's not sticking out far enough, so I'm going to have to adjust that and go again. And there you have it, big giant circle.
Well, isn't that a beauty? And that's, I guess, how I cut out a circle with a giant circle cutter. Super industrial. Nobody ever gonna break that pin off, since it's a car hub. So the reason I actually used a car hub instead of some other bearing, I looked on industrial sites for bearings and shafts and stuff like that. This thing ended up being like half the money, and I got two of them. I got two things to do. So I got a Chevy 5-bolt circle cutter. Now that it's mounted in there, though, it's gonna stay mounted in there. It's gonna spend the rest of its life in there, and then this thing's gonna end up on that wall. Cool enough. So thank you to Pask Makes for getting me inspired to do something this, big and cool. At least I think it's cool. I think it looks pretty. Main thing is my lady thinks it's pretty and thinks it's cool. Anyway, if you all had fun watching this, thank you. If you lasted this long, it means you enjoyed something. You did something, or you scrubbed through it. I don't know. I can tell when you scrubbed through it. Not you specifically, not you, but I can tell when people scrub through and see what parts are interesting. So whatever that means to me, I guess. You liked it or you didn't like it. Anyway, if you do like the channel and you enjoy the content, I don't know, like it up here, this little circle thing. And if you want to see more videos, you can go here. And if you want to see another video, you can go here. I don't know. You guys know what to do. Comment. Tell me what you think. Bye.